Tim Hunt is a world-renowned performance coach and international keynote speaker, and here are his 5 steps to thrive in sales.
One of the things I always say to my students is I believe every successful person, what separates them from winners and losers is the fact that they've got discipline. And, it's funny because I can quickly see where somebody's heading from the moment I speak to them within 60 seconds, because I speak on stage all around the world and I get people asking these questions. And when they're asking me these questions, it's quite funny because somebody once came to me and they said to me, Tim, I've got the best idea in the world right now. I was like, okay, here we go. I've heard this one before. And then they're like, Tim, could you help me market it? I know the fact that this is going to make millions and so forth. He's selling it to me. And I said, all right, great. So what's the idea? And he's like, oh, I'm not going to share that with you. Do you mind if you sign this NDA or something? I was like, you know what? Let's just leave it here. Because one of the things I've realized, this is a pattern a lot of people who aren't getting results share. The reality is like when I really speak with people who are killing it, and online, offline, they're more than happy to share their ideas because most people like the discipline to follow through on them. And I'm exactly the same. And so whenever somebody asks me, Tim, how are you doing this? I'm like, okay, here you go. Because I know the fact that it's only 1% who's going to follow through. And so for me, my habits in my life has been, how can I increase discipline? Because I haven't been always the person who is disciplined in life. And the moment I really learned these habits, it's changed a lot of things for me. So for me, I can tell when somebody's disciplined just from their energy. It's funny because when I interview guests here on Success Insider Show who are fairly successful, you can feel it. It's the energy they've got, right? And then I go speak to somebody out there, like in the normal world, and you can just really tell just the way they treat themselves, the way they dress, the way they are, the tonality, the voice. That's how I can tell in regards to themselves. But how can they tell? I think it's just something that it's that inner knowing. And it's the fact that when you, for example, I'm not sure about you, I've recommended a lot of books to people who I used to say they were my friends. Which are now my old friends. And I remember, I used to say to him, listen, read this book, go through this course, listen to this coach. He will change your life. A couple of weeks later, oh, Tim, I've been really busy. Oh, your work's been stressful. Like all of this BS excuses. That's how I can tell, the fact that I'm disciplined, because I always find when I get given advice, I'm the first to implement it. And so it's that mentality, I suppose, over time, I've realized actually I've got discipline more than majority of people. So it's that inner knowing. What discipline is going against your primitive-based desires. Because we got the primal mind, right? That's telling us every single day, lay in bed, don't do this, fear this. And, we are naturally fear-based creatures because we got a part of our brain called the amygdala that's designed to look at the negative before the positive. And so what I view discipline as, this is personal viewpoint, is somebody who can really control that fear and just go do it anyway. And being able to really train the amygdala, okay, so it goes straight to the prefrontal cortex and it can logically think, this is what I got to do. And, I believe it's not about just hustling hard because, there are a lot of people who hustle hard, but they're not getting results. It's about, working smarter and really just being able to consistently work smarter. Because I've trained, for example, people on my YouTube channel. And it's funny because they comment like on one of the videos one time, they're like, Tim, I'm going to absorb all of this. And you tell me speed of implementation is very important. And then a couple of weeks later, they comment another video. They're like, Tim, I'm back here again. I haven't managed to follow through. It's not about just, for example, going to the gym, lifting weight once. Can you do the thing that is going to grow your body or your business consistently, right? So that's what I believe discipline is all about, yeah. If you really, really care about your friends, you'll be more than happy to leave them. Because most people, what they say to me in regards to this, why they don't want to leave their friends is because, it's been that childhood friend from middle school. We've gone through all of this journey together and I want them part of, this journey and also want them, help them to grow. And that's when I stopped them. I'm like, oh, so you want them to also grow. You see, most people, they're also trying to change their friends because they realize, oh, I can change my life. But what you have to realize is what got you from A to B doesn't necessarily get you from C to D. Just because they were part of that journey, something made you different. Something made you realize, for example, I suddenly started paying attention to a program called Dragon's Den when my friends were just going out, just constantly clubbing all the time. And I'm like, why am I so weird? And when you get, I believe you are just, it's something clicks. The moment that happens, what's funny is you also trying to transform your friends. And that's what happened in my life. I began to basically say, hey, you should watch Dragon's Den. Hey, you should read this book. And what I realized is maybe that's not the journey they're born to live. And if you really, really care about your friends, you'd be more than happy to leave them because the reality is by you trying to pull them up, they're not going to get inspired by that. Most people who are average tend to get inspired by results. And that's why, for example, people in our industry like to show off cars and stuff. Because when people suddenly, for example, you pull up in a nice car to your old friends, they'll be like, holy, how did you get that car? And that's how they're normally inspired, right? Because most people are inspired by material. And so I think if you really care, you'll be more than happy to leave them. That serves them on a higher level. And at the same time, for example, with Steve Jobs, he's been my biggest inspiration in my life. When people, for example, look at Steve Jobs and his success, they're like, oh my God. But when I say to people, he's my biggest idol, people say, oh, but did you hear about what he did? About firing people in the elevator, not treating his daughter, whatever, right or wrong. You got to always ask yourself, what is the intent behind that action? And if it's a positive intent, for example, Steve Jobs realized there has to be sacrifices if he wants to change the world. And I think that's why he had to do the stuff that he did. Yes, were those little actions horrible or negative? To a certain extent, depending on how you view them. But did he end up changing the world for the better? I would say he certainly did. And so it's all about the intent behind that action. It's basically realizing the fact that I don't believe we're in business to customer, B2C, nor B2B. I believe we're in the business of, changing lives, H to H, human to human or heart to heart. And when I, for example, really connect to that every single morning in regards to why am I really doing what I'm doing? What sort of impact do I want to leave today? When I connect to that and when I connect to the community, sometimes part of morning routine, I'm just going through, the letters we get sent in, the emails, the comments and so forth. I connect to why I'm serving because, for example, most salespeople, they're just focused on the numbers. And, I've been there, right, as a business owner, focusing on numbers, the profit, the losses and so forth. But sometimes, especially when you're online, the numbers get the better of you and you just feel so disconnected. I had a client of mine who said to me, oh, Tim, I only got 100 views last week. And I looked at him in the eyes and said, so are you saying 100 people's lives don't matter? Because I believe if you can't serve those 100 people, you won't be able to get a million views. I was able to get millions because I care about every single person, not the views that we're serving. And so I think a salesperson needs to realize what selling is serving. By you not closing the deal, by you not selling to them, you're not serving them at any level because then they have to go off and try to find other alternative solutions, wasting more of their time sitting on pain. And so that's why I'm so adamant. Somebody was literally commenting this morning, Tim, please stop sending me these emails. I don't want to sign up to your program. They need to realize why I'm doing it because I know the fact that they're in pain. They're trying to resolve this. And so the intent is I got to serve them. And the fact that they're saying this, well, at least I'm visible in their world and they know how much I care.